Do you want to introduce yourself to the audience?
Yeah, hi.
Who are you?
So I'm Joe. What's my background in sport? I guess I always grew up playing football. Big Arsenal fan. You had to be in my family. You either supported Arsenal or you didn't eat. Really, that was my choice. So I always grew up, watching football, playing football, and with that came a bit of running, really, but not too much. It was a bit more of a means to an end, and then I guess my fitness journey really transitioned out of that, and then to what most blokes do, which is just going to the gym, right, and taking that with varying degrees of seriousness, I guess, from like my teenage years through uni, obviously complemented well with a diet of alcohol and going out.
Yeah.
And then I would say probably as I've got older, I've taken it more seriously. And then that's where I start getting crazy ideas like running, 100 miles and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But outside of that, I work in banking, work in finance, very sedentary job, sat down a lot of the time, which I guess also plays into the just trying to get out and do something a bit different, really.
Yeah. So, what kind of made you sign up to do a 100-mile race, having only done about a 10K before?
Yeah, so I was like, at the time I'd never done running events. I'd done like 5Ks, like the standard work 5K that race that we sign up to. So I'd done that, and I'd done all right, but I just never really enjoyed the idea of doing these kind of races. And then, I guess it was like sort of the perfect storm of like a few things happening, right? I mean, the obvious one being that my dad had been diagnosed with blood cancer, which obviously, a really sad moment for my family. And that was on the back of, we just lost both of my remaining grandparents. And, the year, felt like I was just taking a bit of emotional battering, through that year. And it kind of came to a point where it's like, okay, what are we going to do about it? And I think sometimes you can say as much as you want to say sometimes, but at a certain point you need, in my mind, you need action. Mm. So I wanted to do something, and in my head, I wanted to raise money for MDS UK, which is the type of blood cancer that my dad has. So that was one part. And then, the second part is, I think, it's that same feeling that we all get at some point, one time or another, which is I want to take on a challenge. I want to do something big. I want to do something that's going to stretch me and push me further than I ever could. And I had that plus the unfortunate combination of listening to David Goggins' audiobook at the time. So I think I was on the stepper at Halo Gym, and he was talking about it. And for me, I'm always interested in big mental challenges, like things that are going to stretch me really far out of my comfort zone. So whether that's like I did these super hard financial exams that only 1 in 5 people pass. 1 in 5 people pass like all 3 exams in a row. I did that. It's like hundreds and hundreds of hours of staring at textbooks. I did and still do stand-up comedy. I don't know if I ever told you this.
I've seen it on your Instagram.
Yeah.
But I've never heard it.
And I'm not like I'm okay, but let me put it in perspective. So when I told my mum, I was like, for the first time about 5 years ago, I said, I'm going to do stand-up comedy. Her first reaction was, I always thought your sister would be good at that. So it's not like a natural thing. It was just a thing of like, can you imagine, like I was doing some speaking at work, and I remember a guy said, if you want to get really good, do stand-up comedy. I thought, God, that is the most terrifying thing I could possibly think of doing. Mm-hmm. Let's do it. And yeah, it is terrifying, but it just puts you in that situation of, can you perform? Can you put yourself in a situation where everything is telling you, I don't want to do this, and do it? And that was kind of the same mentality where when it came to 100 miles is, God, that is so far out there. It's going to really stretch me. And I was listening to that bloody audiobook, David Goggins, and I was listening to, I think, Cameron Haynes at the time, very, very similar profile. And they talk about their 100-mile runs. They're really like the cornerstones of their book in the mental resilience and fortitude that it gives them. And after a certain point, I was like, well, what does that feel like? Why can't I do that? And if I can, where's that going to take me, and what's my level going to be? So it was kind of that perfect storm. Plus one other thing, like I said, loads of things gonna have to edit a lot of this out. But as you know, I was running with Sean, my best friend, and we started running together in 2022, which is basically the only running I was doing that year. And he was on the path to now losing 20 kilos, and I was watching him start from absolutely zero, and he really didn't want to run. I turned up on his, we just agreed in 2022 we were going to start running together. And he was about 105, 106 kilos. So I turned up to his door on the first day, and he was miserable. He was, I didn't think he was going to turn up. He showed up, and we only started doing like a 5-minute run. And every week he showed up and showed up and showed up, and every week got better and better and better and lost more and more weight. And I started to think, God, I'm watching this guy push himself and do something that he really doesn't want to do every single week. And that's a really powerful thing to watch. And then you look at your own life and you're thinking, well, I'm not really doing that. And what's the equivalent of me doing something that is really going to push me and stretch me to do something and take me to a new level? And I would say all of those things, plus gaining a bit of Christmas weight, put me in that perfect storm where I saw that opportunity, I saw the race, and I thought, let's do it. Let's go for it.
And what did the challenge of like staring down the barrel of 100 miles give you?
In what sense?
Yeah, good question. Like for some people, it gives them obviously like a sense of purpose, and then they work towards something. Obviously, yeah, I don't know how did you knowing you had to complete 100 miles, how did that change what you did, what you thought you had to do, your mentality towards things like running, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's exciting, right? It's like whenever you sign up to something big, it just gives you that like focus of your mind. It's like, fuck. I mean, I'm gonna do this. Can I swear or not swear? Yeah. Fuck. Right? It's huge, right? Because I always think like when I'm at my best, or I think most people are at their best when they're working towards something that's going to make them better, right? When they're going to find something that they don't necessarily have right now. So for me, it was just like it was another chance to flip that switch and see, hey, what am I capable of? And know that you've got something that, quite frankly, when I signed up, I had no idea how I was going to do it. I just knew that it was going to take a lot of work and that I was committed to doing it. So there was all kinds of things that obviously I knew I didn't know at the time. So I was just excited when I first started doing it. And then I was like, okay, I need help. And that's where you came in, right?
Because most people, I think, would be petrified at the thought, of doing 100 miles. But do you think that you kind of, is there a line, or maybe there similar feelings or feelings that align with each other where you're in that place of, fuck, I'm not sure if this is possible, that's an exciting prospect, but also were you fearful of taking it on?
No, like with 100, like not so much. I just knew it was going to be big.
Okay.
And I think it was, I honestly think it was because I thought, wow, this would be a great challenge, sign up. And it was because I honestly think it wasn't until I started to research, what most normal people would do is research first and then sign up. Whereas I paid the £200 entry fee, and I thought that's a good start. And it was only when I started looking at what it takes, that's when I started to realize, this is like, I knew it was going to be a lot of work, but you don't picture it because I wasn't running. It wasn't like I was running like 20, 30 Ks and thought, I've got to do this however many more times to do it. I just didn't have those thoughts because I had no real frame of reference. I didn't know things like elevation was a thing. And then I didn't think about that when we did running, like when I signed up to the race. So then I would tell people I'm doing the North Downs Way 100, and people would go, oh, that's a hilly one. And I go, I didn't even think that was I didn't even look. I just saw a number there, like, oh, elevation, fine, whatever. So it was just exciting that I'd signed up to something so big. And then it was only when I started formulating the plan that I started to realise, how much of a challenge that was going to be.
Almost like the naivety of it was your biggest superpower
Yeah,
at that time, wasn't it?
Well, sometimes you need that, right? Sometimes I think,
I think it's great, yeah.
Yeah, sometimes like, there are certain things where, signing up to something isn't gonna kill you, right? It's not like I said, right, I'm gonna put like all of my life savings in Bitcoin there and then, and the decision's made. Like, it wasn't like that. It's just you can sign up and then put that stake in the ground and put that deadline, and then you work towards that target. I think sometimes you can overthink signing up to things. Yeah, I think it's the same. Like, looking back now, I was having the same conversation. I don't know if you agree with someone about running distance races. Is that often some people who think so much time about doing a marathon, they focus so much on, I want to run it perfect, I want to run it in the right time. I so, well, why don't you just focus on doing it? Because if you do it, probably the second one or the third one, you'll get the time you want. Whereas otherwise, you could probably live your whole life putting it off and putting it off, waiting for the perfect conditions to come up. Or you might one day run a marathon, 50 mile, 100 mile, and it will just never happen. So sometimes just do it, sign up, and there's a lot of power in that, I think.
Yeah, to be honest, I more see it that people put so much emphasis on the time with a marathon that they lose sight of the achievement of it, especially if you first one. Often, I would have, we said this to hundreds of people now, like, your first marathon is your only opportunity that you're guaranteed a PB.
So I like that.
Whereas because of the kind of noise surrounding marathons, how fast you can do it, people just get caught up in that, and then they don't actually see the fact that 99% of people don't even sign up to a marathon, let alone do one. But like you say, with that, do the first one, enjoy the experience, and then if you want to do more, you can focus on time. Down the line. What point was it where you obviously reached out to get help? Like, what moment did you kind of think, I might need some help with this?
Yeah, I knew pretty obviously. I knew you existed as a person. You plastered everywhere, all over Halo Gym Tunbridge Wells. So it was like a fairly direct thought process from, what the fuck have I just done? I'm going to need help. Who is the best person to help? Well, look, right in front of me, there's Ollie. So yeah, that was it. I mean, I think I signed up, gave it maybe even a few days. I don't know. I honestly don't know the time, but I just thought, I know I'm going to need help, and you were the perfect person, really.
Because I think we had an initial conversation where you were like, do you think it would be possible to do this? And I was kind of like, yeah. And then you were like, when I next saw you, you were like, oh, I've signed up for 100 miles.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like we had a conversation where you were like, would this be possible?
Yeah, what I can't remember for the life of me, maybe I could backdate this, is was I too afraid to admit I'd signed up or not? I don't even know.
Maybe.
Because it's funny, because you forget these conversations, but yeah, there was a moment where I was like, I don't know how possible that is. And you forget some of the thought process you had at the time where, yeah, obviously I was like, I can sign up for something, but I don't know how possible. That was probably one of my worries, actually, is that when I signed up for this, looking back, was, what if I ask someone for help and they say, this isn't possible, or don't do it, or don't try. And that was probably one of the most reassuring parts of the process, is actually, you never ever said, this isn't possible. It was always like, here's how we're going to deliver you at 100 miles. Is this what you're set on doing? My job is to help you get there. Whereas I thought that I knew I was doing something that probably not many people are going to try. And I don't know if it's possible myself. So you really need someone in your corner that says, this is how we're going to help you do it.
Because I wasn't sure whether it was possible.
You weren't?
No. But if someone comes and says an idea, I never want to be the person to say it's not possible, because it kind of puts a full stop in it. And unless you're the type of person that's going to turn around and be like, I don't care what you say, I'm going to do it anyway. And a couple of times during my career, I've had instances where I haven't I've almost believed something wasn't going to be possible, and then the person goes and does it anyway. Because I think over that kind of distance, it's much more about how you approach it psychologically, your mindset towards it, and the drive to do the thing, than it is about the physical ability. So I thought my biggest fear was you get injured like badly in the first kind of few months, and then weren't able to get up to the standard, or something like, you got injured in a marathon, you weren't able to do the 50, or something like that. But I knew if you got through the 50, you were good.
Lucky I had 0 injuries whatsoever.
Yeah. Luckily it was completely plain sailing. How did that help? What did that give you?
Like I said, I think, you forget a lot of the things that help you along the way. And it's interesting that you reminded me of the fact that I did ask you how possible it was. The first one is just reassurance. And I think if I was doing this again now, I would never sign up with someone that wasn't fully on board with what I was doing. Mm-hmm. I don't know what I would have done if you said, I'm not sure it's possible. But I think the fact that you, even though you maybe didn't voice it, even if maybe you had your doubts, you fully supported the decision for me to try. And for me, that was massive, because that I knew it was a ridiculous goal. It is madness, but you need someone to help you confirm your belief that it could be possible, and to get there in the trenches with you and say, here's how you could do it. And for me, that was really powerful. That was really helpful. And I think, and I've said this to you before, if you were to Google how to run 100 miles, you would get 10 times like a million of the articles, hundreds of different articles, right? That you could look at, like what you should be eating, how many miles a week you should be doing, and there's just too much noise. There's so much information. So for me, especially because I don't have a great deal of time with work and other commitments, to have one single source of information that I could put my trust in, and then I wouldn't have to deviate from. It's like, just ask Ollie. It's like, oh, but an article says it doesn't matter. Just ask Ollie. I've got an issue with my knee. Fine, just ask Ollie. Massively saves you a lot of time and mental energy in terms of how you do stuff. And I guess the other part of that is, when you Google a plan, run X miles a week. What happens when you get an ankle injury? You're off the plan. So having that dynamic plan that we could work together, and we had a lot of roadblocks along the way, really helped save me time and gave me comfort. And I even remember things like throughout, I'd be looking at, I got one of the Garmin Forerunner watches, and it was saying, you have an anaerobic shortage. And I'm freaking out, thinking, I've got an anaerobic shortage. I'm not even sure what that is, but I'm freaking out, Ollie. And you'd be like, this is not an issue. Your focus is completely different. Don't stress, do this. So all of those thoughts that, in the absence of a coach, could go flying off into different directions and take you off course, just never happened. It was just very, very centered approach.
Nice.
Well done. You should be happy.
How did you find the training process? It's a big question.
Big question. I mean, I guess, what we talking about by training approaches, in the plan, or just how you put it together, or?
I mean, I guess how you found it. Again, big question. But how you found the general process, whether it was pretty, big. It's a big question. Did you find it easy in terms of pretty straightforward? Did you
actually doing the training or the coaching process?
Actually doing the training.
I mean, I quite enjoyed it. I quite like, I do like it. I've had, various stages where, I've been doing more like hypertrophy work, and you've got like a lot of workouts to do, a lot of sets, a lot of reps, and you know, if you're cutting, it's a lot of cardio, and there's a lot of like stress that you're going through. And I quite like it when you're on that structured plan where you know you've got certain workouts to do that are going to make you better. So it's just being on the plan I really enjoyed. And the training process itself, yeah, it was different because obviously I was doing all of these long runs that I just wasn't used to doing. And it's kind of crazy to start seeing your mileage go up and up and up and up and up to levels that seem kind of crazy to you. So that was fun in a way. And I actually ended up, I thought it was going to be, some of those runs are just going to be horrendous. Like if you told me, right, you're going to be running 4 hours on a Saturday and then 3 hours on a Sunday, I'm just thinking, right, mentally how I'm going to get through it. Whereas looking back, I realized that you start to enjoy that process. You start to enjoy the long runs. You start to enjoy the time in your own mind where you're working stuff out and you're thinking about how am I going to get through this. And you realize a lot of the process of going through some of those longer runs is like emotionally and like physically, it's not just getting harder and harder and harder. It's not linear. You can find ways of getting more energy, and just because it's hard now in 5 minutes, like it's not going to be hard in like another 10. You know, it's just about finding and managing your mind through that situation, and that part I actually really enjoyed.
And what about, because every week you were basically doing something uncharted, right? So every week you were running distances you'd never even touched before.
Yeah, it's fun.
Was there a sense of achievement with that, or like confidence in that your body was holding up, or?
I think so, only that my body didn't hold up.
Yeah, when I said that, I did realise that was.
I think that's the thing. I mean, that's also the other part of the process, right? Is learning more about your body and doing something, doing that different kind of training. That's where you learn more about yourself. And obviously, for me, I learned that there are limitations to what you can and can't run through. Which is why when you say don't run through pain, and I think I'm going to run 100 miles, I will run through anything, and then you don't run again for 5 weeks, that's when you start to learn more about, you know, how it's not pushing through everything, but learning when to push and how to manage your body, which I think is a really valuable tool in your training.
Yeah. What was your biggest high point throughout the process, excluding the day itself? So biggest high point during the training process?
I think it's got to be, can I say the 50 miler?
Yeah.
It's got to be the 50 miler. Has to be the 50 miler. I mean, I'm trying to remember, what was it like? Maybe like 2 weeks before. You caught me, you were the client, and you just saw me like trying to run on a treadmill whilst I was limping, just trying to get something back into my legs. And obviously for context, about 6 weeks before, I'd had this niggling calf injury, which I thought was okay. And then I started this long training run, about 34k, and it started to hurt after about 2k. I decided that paracetamol and ibuprofen was the way to get through it. Ran through it, tore my calf. Like not a massive tear, but like painful enough that I'd be waking up the following week in the night just in pain with my calf. I had some supposed like physio thought it was like ankle ligament damage as well that I had. So I was really just not running. I was not even walking without pain. Like I would try, even if I did like a tiny like little canter. I was late for a train once, probably about 3 weeks before the race. I thought I'll just try like and get this train. Within 90 seconds, my ankle was just blown up in pain. So I really, for 6 weeks before that 50, my confidence was just getting worse and worse. I wasn't training. I thought there's no way I'm doing this 50. And I think at that point you were saying, don't be an idiot here. You're injured. And it was so far from my mind, I decided to go on a work trip away to Lisbon the weekend before. It's like we're just going out, having a good time. And something on that Friday, so the week before my run, that Friday I was, I'd knocked my ankle and it was hurting. And something happened over that weekend. I don't know what, but on the Monday, was the first time I walked pain-free in 6 weeks, which was firstly amazing, but secondly, then my mind was starting to say, oh God, you're going to have to try and run this thing, right? Because I couldn't. I think you asked me not long after I was limping on that treadmill, it's like, what would you rather do? Would you rather not risk the run and then, you know, recover fully and then come back and do 50 miles? Or would you rather blow up your ankle 10K into the race and then that would be that? And I said, I'd blow up my ankle. But, which is, you know, and I'm like, you know, which is a bad call, right? By any sense of the word. But I think there's something in my head that was just like, I don't ever like the idea of leaving something on the table if there's performance there, because like you have it with every run, and anytime, you know, you get up and you go to your workout, you're always going to get a million excuses as to why you shouldn't do it. I've never got up in the morning and done a workout and thought, I'm woken up that morning and thought, I'm so happy to get up and work out. Like, it's never ever happened. So I know that my mind is always going to say, maybe you shouldn't. And I really thought, like, the context of this year, or like what I was aiming for this year, wasn't necessarily to run 100 miles. It was to get rid of, like, it was to fight through thoughts like that and be the kind of person that didn't listen to that. Hey, it's all right if you don't try. Hey, it's all right if you stop after 70 miles if it hurts. So for me, it was kind of a non-negotiable at that point on that Monday when I was walking fine. I was thinking, oh, I've actually got to try it. And I knew, hey, like, if it's 5K, it's 5K. If it's 10K, it's 10K. And I remember just being out there on that day, and I don't know, wow, like that was the moment for me. I was like, wow, it really just shows, like, mentally what you can be capable of, but you have to show up. You have to show up. Because I had no business running that 50 miler. There's another scenario, there's another version of that, probably where I listened to the absolute right advice that you gave me, and I'm still limping now.
Yeah.
You know, that wasn't without risk. It wasn't the smart choice by any means. But I think it just shows that sometimes, that's why coaching is a partnership, right? Is that sometimes you just have to take your shot. And that's probably one of the most, like, powerful moments of my life, just being able to do that.
I know. Was that the point where you knew? Because for me, you completing that 50, I was like, right, you can do the 100. Because I knew that if we could get you to that 100-mile start line, fit and healthy, feeling good, that, yeah, you'd do it. Was that the point where you knew you could do 100, or was it never really in question that you were going to do the 100?
No, Ollie, I didn't want to. I couldn't enjoy it. Like, it was a great moment, but I couldn't enjoy the 50 mile. I couldn't enjoy finishing it for 2 days because I realised I would have to try and run the 100, and I knew what I felt like after 50, and I was fucked. Yeah. Like, I ran with I met this guy, Simon, after about 15 miles. We ran 35 miles, the last 35 miles together. And he was doing the 50, and he knew that I signed up to the 100. And we asked each other, sort of, you know, with that, you know, 1K out, could you do the 100? Could you do on the 50? And we were like, no fucking way could we. Like, absolutely no way. There's nothing worse in my mind than thinking I could do this all over again. I was completely wrecked. So when I finished the 50, was I happy? Yeah, I was. Like, looking back now, having done the 100, was that one of the most powerful moments of my life? Absolutely. Did I enjoy it? No. Because the question comes, well, you can do the 100 now. And I just couldn't mentally, knowing the pain I was feeling in that moment, I couldn't comprehend what 100 miles would be like at that time. It just didn't compute. So I actually had to wait almost for the pain, to forget the pain, before I could enjoy it, and then looking back, and then start to build that confidence to do the 100, which for me that now is an even more powerful moment, right? Is that I wonder if I'd not signed up to the 100, would I have done it post 50?
No.
Exactly right. And that for me makes me think a lot about taking on challenges in your life, is that I know I potentially left another 50 miles on the table, like 100% performance on the table, just because I felt what I felt after the 50. I think that for me, I was like, wow, imagine if I hadn't done the 100 when it was there.
So how did you overcome that feeling, or that almost that fear of 100? Because most people, I think, most people that run a marathon do a half, and they can never make that link between, how am I going to do double it, right?
But that's exactly. And the thing is that was a question that was colonizing my mind for a long time leading up to the 100, and that's where talking to you helped a lot, because we had exactly this conversation, right? And you said, anyone who finishes a half marathon never thinks they can do a full marathon. They always think it's impossible, and then they go and do it. And there's no difference here. It's just bigger numbers. And that really helps. Really helped. And then from my point of view, it was just trying to build the right mentality from then on to get me ready for the 100 miler. And with that, I think there's mentally preparing for it, and then just finally just getting that sort of, I think we had about 10 weeks, that 10-week block to nail the training, not get injured, not overdo it. So at least I would come in fresher than I was for the 50. And I think that helped a lot, almost being injured before the 50 and things, because my prep for the marathon didn't go well, like with an injury, because the 50 mile didn't go well. There was always that part in my head saying, well, if this goes well, you're going to be in a better position for the 100. And you've got those 50 miles in your legs.
Yeah. Did I ever say about the 70% rule?
What's that?
So there's and I've used this a lot, and even in my own training, whatever distance you're doing, it will begin getting tough after 70%. So irrespective of whether you're doing 10K, 100K, 100 miles, first 70% you'll deal with quite well. But once you're at that point of knowing it's possible, knowing the end is in sight, knowing you've done the majority of it, that's when it gets tough. Because a lot of the time, if you're doing stuff like, how easily did you do a marathon in the 100 miler? Probably didn't even think about it.
No, you don't think about it.
Or you're just like, oh, that's a marathon. Oh, that's another marathon. It's the idea that whatever distance you do, it's the last 30% or the last 25% that's hard. And that's a mental thing, not a physical thing. Because you're at that point where the end is in sight, you've done the most of it. So you almost like your mind begins thinking, oh, this is you're relaxing a little bit more, so that you then begin to feel.
I completely agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember probably one of the hardest 12K stretches was, of the 100 miler, was, I think I had about 20, I'm mixing between kilometers and miles here, but I remember it was a 12K stretch and I had about 22 miles left. And it sounds ridiculous now. Like if you'd asked me this a year ago about these sort of numbers, I thought I knew with 22 miles it's done. I can bring this home. Or I think it was maybe, let me start that again because I've got all the numbers mixed up.
It's all good.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so there's 22 miles to go. And I think I just knocked out the first 14K of that, which was a really, really, it's probably the hardest 14K of the entire run, is that you're just going up hills and down hills. And we'd just gone through Storm Anthony during the day, so it was muddy and you couldn't get your footing and you were thinking about how much time you're going to lose. And you can't get any pace going because you're going up. And then the downhill, your knees are so wrecked that you can't go downhill. So you're going nowhere for those first sort of, I think 14K of that last 22 mile stretch. But then I got through it. And then after I'd done that, the distance left, I knew I'd done it. I knew I was like, this is mine now. It's all over. Like I can do this. But that 12K was possibly there was a 12K to the next aid station and then a final 7K. And that 12K was one of the hardest of the race because I knew I'd done it. I knew all I had to do was not get injured. So I was like, I'm going to hike this really fast. But every kilometer went down so slowly because I knew I'd done it. And like you said, your mind starts to think, oh, it's all okay. It's fine. You're going to be all right. And you just, when you can see that end in sight and you know it's done, that mentally is so tough just to get that over the line.
But you still got to do that last bit.
Yeah, but I also think there's a lot of power in that. And then I flipped that for the last 7K. Is that because I think there's so much power in that? Because and also it's not a new feeling because you've had so many training runs where you go, oh, brilliant, I've done the hard part, and you may have like 7 or 8K left. And you're sitting there going, oh, this is dragging. And 7 or 8K it's always at the slowest you've ever run it because you're running such long distances. It does not come in quickly. So, but I think there's so much power in that last part because, without getting philosophical about, life or anything, it's like as much as you think you can do something, you still have to execute the easy miles. You still have to get that last part to complete. So then I flipped it for the last 7. I said, this is your last chance to leave everything out here and go for it and really own those last 7. But I think I totally agree with you on the 70% rule.
So we talked about your biggest high. What was your biggest, I'll give you a choice here, low or learning point throughout the process?
Oh, like listen to Ollie. Like don't push, don't run through injuries. That was cost myself so much on that, right? So obviously straight off the bat, I thought it was a clever idea to run through a bit of knee pain for 15K, put myself out for 5 weeks before the marathon. So basically had to run that with the worst preparation. Not ideal. Didn't learn my lesson. Tore my calf. So listen to Ollie, I think is a really good mantra. I think knowing what your limits are. I think I think about this a lot. It's like knowing what your limits are, but then equally, I would say the hard thing is with injuries is never black and white of knowing what is a niggle and what's not. And part of me thinks also the same attitude that got me injured is probably the same attitude that got me through the 100. But it's trying to manage that in the right way and knowing, everyone who wants to run distance knows that they need a resilience that comes with it, or they're running to get that resilience. And the problem is obstacles are going to come up, and it's learning when to push through them and when not to. And for me, training with you really gave me that balance of, okay, I know don't run through injuries. So when I was training through the 100, I start to feel my knee going, fine, you don't need to get that last 2K, risk versus reward. Do the leg strengthening exercises Ollie's been talking about. Oh, guess what? My knees feel better now. It's like, it's listen to the process, like listen to what Ollie's saying, like take it on board. And then I think it's finding that balance between all the advice you're getting with also, you get the advice, but then it's how you sink that in and get that to feed in with what you're trying to do, which is I wanted to push through everything. And finding that balance was, that was my learning point, I think.
And then the 100 miler itself, how was the event?
Long.
Yeah.
It's a long day. Like I would go 2 days before that as well, because I think the event really kicks in is when you start doing that carb loading.
Yeah.
I think that's when it gets really real. And for me, I had the Thursday and the Friday off, and then ran on the Saturday, and they were. So Thursday, what did I have? I was like eating sort of nearly 5,000 calories for the Thursday and Friday. And Thursday morning's brilliant because you're not that hungry, and you go into it and you think, oh, I'm just going to eat some more of the foods that I want. not realizing that that's not really, you're probably eating more fat than you want to, and you need to hit the carb goal that you set by the evening. So I remember on the Thursday night, it hit home pretty badly when I was sat in my bed at 9 o'clock at night, taking gels on and drinking Lucozade, just trying to hit my carb goal. That's when I realized that it was this was tough. And waking up on the Friday, I woke up at 5 o'clock and I was so full and had to start eating. And I had like the worst headache. I just felt sick, I felt rough, which I think is normal apparently when you try and stuff that much food down. Mm-hmm. But I was just so full, I didn't feel good. So you turn up after another full day of that. Saturday I woke up just feeling rough, groggy, headache. And then it's pissing down with rain. So starting on that start line, I thought starting the 100 miler, to be there in that moment, I'd be like, yeah, this is my moment. I'm really going to go for this. I was like, I couldn't get there mentally. I was just almost just hanging in there a little bit, because it was just, I knew how long a day this was going to be. And there are thoughts in your mind saying, you don't even feel well right now. You don't feel good. How are you going to run 100 miles? So that was almost quite a tough part. It's just like, just get going, find your way into this race. And really, it was almost a metaphor for what comes through the day, is that you're having, I can't condense into 2 minutes like the 28 hours that it took me, but it really is those waves of when you're not there, when there are those moments, you just got to hang in there. You just got to hang in there. And then there are moments where you're going to love them. It sounded like a long time. It took me about 2 hours to start enjoying the run. I was running for 2 hours, and then I was like, okay, here we are. This is where we want to be. I think I digested some of that food.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it.
And you're warm and you're good, and everything's like all the little niggles you're going to have just training for 100 mile. Like everything's warm. And then you have some it's taking the moment to enjoy those good moments where you're out there, and then it does sink in. Hey, I'm doing this, and I was really excited. Apart from the start, I was really excited in the lead up to the run. I wasn't really nervous, because you don't get many opportunities in life to live a day like where you run 100 miles. You don't. Like, I sit at a desk most days, and I actually enjoy my work, but you don't. Most days are building on another day, right? You don't get many days in life where you say, I'm putting this day in the calendar and it will be one of the biggest challenges of my life. You don't get many opportunities in life to live a day like that and know it's coming. So for me to know I was going to go through that and win, lose or draw, I was either going to win or I was going to find a limit, and in which case that was a win. I was so psyched up for that moment. So being on that run, knowing that I was in that moment was there, and I was just dialed in. I was so ready for it, because like you said in the training, by that time I'd started to work out, hey, you can't push yourself to the max on every training run. You've got to listen to your body. You've got to know when to pull back and when to push. But it was all gas. It was doesn't matter now. You don't have to run after this. It was finally the shackles are off, and it was my time to test my mind on 100 miles. And I was so ready for that. And I think through the 100 miles, a lot of people talked about, were there low moments? Of course there were really low moments, but I was so ready for them. I was we just got to keep going. And that was such a great experience. Was it horrible? Was I miserable sometimes? Yeah, of course I was. But I knew going in that I was going to feel like that. So it was an amazing experience.
I always think there's a beautiful uniqueness to being so focused and present on just one thing. Most of our lives we spend thinking about, we might be doing one thing, but we're thinking about 10 others. There's almost quite a uniqueness to this kind of endurance race where you don't have anything, you only have that moment. All your focus is, and although you will think about other stuff during it, your whole focus is on that day and on that event and completing it. There doesn't actually come you don't need to worry about work or.
You can be totally present.
Yeah.
I think again, I think the long runs prep you so well for something like this because they force you to spend time in your mind. Like they force you. And if you're doing, I think, a lot of people listen to audiobooks and stuff when they run. Whereas I just like maybe a bit of music, sometimes yes, sometimes no. But I love the opportunity just to have that time thinking about things. And the amount of times I've had a tough run, and really the difference between it being a tough run and a good run is just me finding something to hold on to. Like a positive thought or something that's, like something's just going to dig a little bit more out of you emotionally. And you just, through those long runs, you build those tools which come out on the 100. So you just have things that if you think about them, that's going to keep you going. Like that could be your family, or for me, I had some things like, I choose to be here, was something that I kept telling myself. I tell myself like, I get on the exercise bike every morning, and those first 5-7 minutes are tough. So sometimes I'll ask myself question, do you want to get off? Do you want to get off? Or do you choose to be here? And often the moment I say I choose to be here, like because I want to feel something like this, because I want the feeling of it, of growth. I want the feeling to push me. It changes, I think, like the flow in your mind from I'm suffering through this to this is what I signed up for. I put myself here. So having those tools, which I carved more or less through long distance runs, just by thinking these thoughts and thinking what will keep me going. Or I used to think about, I still think about this a lot when I run, when it gets really tough, especially if your heart rate's spiking and it's hurting and all those thoughts start coming into your mind. I think that one day I'll kill to be in this situation. And it comes back to saying living that day that you want to live. One day I will kill to be in a situation where my lungs are burning. I might be sat in a chair like this, decades from now, not able to run, not able to, I might just be stuck in front of a TV, not able to get up, not able to do much. And I will kill for a day where I could be on a 100-mile run, feeling something, feeling like there's a challenge out there. So be grateful to have it. So those are all the things that I was just, I had those thoughts and tools and everything ready. And it was, I think that was another just powerful experience of doing that distance, is that you need time on roads, almost in pain, to come up with a better quality of thought. And that it builds that. I think that's where that, it's the concept of building resilience while you're running. I think that's where that comes from. That was deep, wasn't it?
That's good, mate. Yeah.
Deep, yeah.
Well, it's a privilege, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like I love what you said about the choice thing, because I think it's such a powerful thing that, flip it around. You choose to be there. You choose to be doing this thing. So you can't really ever complain about the feelings that you're experiencing, because it's your choice to put yourself there.
Yeah. No, I think it's really powerful.
And the feeling of crossing the line, elation or relief?
Oh man, like I visualized that for so long. Like it was really emotional actually, because there were times on that where obviously I was raising money for charity. I was raising money for MDS UK, and there was, this is about raising money, but and this is obviously a really personal challenge. It was about me developing and growing and like finding more of myself. But there's obviously this other element to it, which was about raising money for charity and really just putting a marker out there for our family and saying, hey, look, let's focus on something else. Let's focus on the positives. Let's do something. And, my dad, and like, it's quite an emotional thing thinking about my dad and him being diagnosed. And, we've had a lot of chats about it, and knowing that you were running for that, like you spend a lot of the race thinking about what it's going to be like to see him at the end of the finish line. And I was tearing up, I think, like at one point on the run, again, probably just trying to find that emotional response to keep me going. I was thinking about how grateful I am for the time that I've got with him. And it's really emotional, like thinking about all that. And you come in at 100 miles, and I just thought I'm going to break down. Like I almost was I was like, I will get there, and I could feel myself. I'm just going to start crying. And you come onto this racetrack, and the real kicker of the 100 mile is they make you run 300 meters around the racetrack. to come round to the finish line. And I remember picturing that, miles and miles and miles in advance. I remember telling my girlfriend, make sure Dad hasn't doing his usual thing where he's taking loads of pictures. I just want to give him the biggest hug at the end of this. And I got to the end and I was running around this racetrack and I saw my mum, my dad, my girlfriend, my cousin who pays me. I was with my best mate as well, who pays me, my girlfriend's parents, my aunt, my uncle, and some people from MDS UK had come out. And it was just the happiest group of people I've ever seen. And suddenly all these thoughts or emotions just channeled into just absolute pure ecstasy, pure happiness. It's such a hard, that's such a hard feeling to describe, but you just completed possibly one of the hardest things you may ever complete. All the people you care about are there and they couldn't be happier for you and they've all witnessed it. And it was just the best feeling of just pure happiness. And then the pain sets in.
Nice to be able to share it with your dad as well.
Oh, it's amazing.
Especially with the fifth, because he's kind of been there through obviously he goes to the same gym. He was there at the 50. Was he there at the marathon too?
No, I think he was on holiday for the marathon. But again, all of these things, it was because I was, the plan was always have people at the marathon, have people at the 50. Because I was injured, I was I don't know if I'm going to do this. So just don't turn up. But yeah, he's obviously, he sees me out running all the time. I know if he could, he'd be out there running with me. So yeah, it's pretty awesome to have him at the line. I won't forget that moment.
What has kind of completing such a big event, how's that, I don't want to say changed you because it makes it sound a bit, I don't know, wanky, doesn't it?
It does sound very wanky, yeah.
What has that kind of given you moving forwards?
Yeah, I think it's a really, I think about this sort of stuff a lot. I always wonder whether something like doing 100 miles, does that give you a new sense of resilience, or by running that, is it a test of your existing thought patterns? And I really think it's probably both. But for me, running 100 miles, it was me testing my own, we both said, there's a physical part to this to get you resilient, but then it's going to become mental. At some point, it just becomes a pure mental battle. And at that point, for me, it was a test of my thought process. And how do you handle this? So part of me was by doing 100 miles, that was a perfect test of my thought process. But then I also think going forward, wow, knowing that you're capable of doing something like that, I think it does add a new level to what you think you're capable of doing. And how can it not make you more confident? Who wouldn't be more confident? Insufferably confident, you might say. Who wouldn't feel amazing if you could do something like that? But I think it's also, I wanted to run 100 miles, but I wanted to run it in a certain way. And so one of the other things that I thought a lot about when I was running is that it's not can you suffer, it's how you suffer. And for me, that, we all want to run where there's 10k to go, everything's hurting, and you can dig in, you'll do the 10k, I guarantee afterwards you'll worry about doing the next run. And you'll be God, that was long, I didn't enjoy that. And so starts the spiral of next time you think about running, it's, but that sucks. So for me, I wanted to run it, but I wanted to run it taking full ownership of the pain that I was in. And I was it's not, when you're going through a hard time, it is going to hurt, but it's not necessarily about digging in. It's finding something powerful that's going to make you feel in a positive way about doing that run. It's can you feel that pain and do it anyway and really own the situation that you're in? And for me, that's that's where I think a lot of the power was post the 100 miler.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. No,
I'm not sure it did.
No, it did.
Fee, does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't think it did, but
No.
it made sense in my head.
It definitely did. It's how you respond to the feelings of suffering, right?
Yeah.
You have choice in a lot, right? You're there, but it is almost like that. I think that marine thing of can you smile through the face of adversity? You have a choice in how you react to. You're going to suffer either way. Do you bitch and moan about it, or do you let that get you down, or do you actually take ownership of it? Not enjoy it, but
Yeah, I think
positively push yourself through.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like two examples, right? So I remember I was on holiday in Croatia, last day of holiday, had some time to use up, and my girlfriend, who's a bit of a daredevil, decided it'd be a good idea if we tried like cliff jumping. Like, so basically just jumping off, like sort of 5 all the way up to like 10, 12 meter cliffs. And you have a guide or anything to make sure that you don't like jump onto a rock, basically. I'm not scared of heights, but I don't like enjoy them, not like my girlfriend does. So we get to, I think it's got to be about like 10, 11 meters, and that's big. That's high for me. The guy jumps in, and Miller, my girlfriend, she's just flying in like without a care in the world. And obviously at that point, I'm committed. I'm not backing out. And somewhere on my phone, there's about 5 or 6 videos of me going to the edge and then not doing it, going into the edge and not doing it, going to the edge and not doing it. And I jump in, I finish it, but I was terrified. And if you said, do you want to do it again? I'd say absolutely not. And then last year I went skydiving, and I remember thinking about that moment when I was cliff jumping, thinking, you'd never want to do that again. This is all about how you frame it, right? And it's like, again, it's like, I choose to be here. Like, it's not suffering through this, it's how I suffer, it's how I decide to take this experience. And yeah, like absolutely terrifying. But would I do it again? Absolutely I would. So I think when it comes to taking on these kinds of challenges, and when you're doing it, you've got to do it, but you've got to do it in a certain way that's going to make you want to come back for more. Because that's, it's not, you don't want to do 100 miles once in your life and then not do anything ever again because that was so painful and you're afraid of ever taking it on again, right? Is you want to do something that is the platform to do other things in your life. Like swim the channel, for example.
Well, we'll come on to that in a minute. Do you feel like you found the limit with 100 miles?
No. I think I would do another one. Yeah, definitely do another one.
Yeah, so I guess that brings us on to what is next for you.
Well, yeah. So what's next? Like, I mean, I would do, like, with these runs, I am thinking about whether I'll do another sort of like 100 plus miler. Obviously, it's just a time commitment, and I'm conscious of things like impact on my joints and stuff like that. So, but I would definitely do another one. But I have, signed up to swim the channel in September 2025, which is going to be my next big challenge. But you can only, when it comes to swimming channel, you can only sign up like 2 years in advance because there's only a limited amount of slots. Obviously, the busy shipping lane. Apparently. Again, I've done exactly what I did before, which I've signed up. I don't really swim, so I've got to now work out how the hell I'm going to do that.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll bring its own set of challenges as well.
Yeah, I think it's going to be cold.
Yeah, might need a wetsuit.
You can't wear a wetsuit.
Can you not?
You can't wear to be.
Are you doing it in Speedos?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, to be an accredited channel swim through the Channel Swimming Association, you cannot wear a wetsuit. So it's just Speedos and goose fat.
Nice.
Which is an OnlyFans page if ever you need a run.
Yeah, I was going to say, you make some money to fund your trip.
Yeah.
Joe, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Awesome. Cheers, Ollie.
Cheers, mate. Oh.